I highly suggest not using motorized devices. There is no scientific published study or clinical evidence that a motorized device performs better. So people always think the needle length is so important, which I actually think what is more important is the material. I'm going to be comparing these devices amongst price, quality, effectiveness, ergonomics, safety, and an overall general rating. Welcome, my name is Daisy. I've been working in microneedling devices for over 13 years, starting in 2012. So first, we're going to talk about the Cure Microinfusion system, or microinfusions in general. There's other brands out there like Glow, Ceranova. There's other microinfusion brands out there. This, I believe, was about $130 to $140, and it includes 2 microinfusions and 2 vials of serum. First, let's talk about the needles. I think the most important thing of any microneedling device is the needles, okay, because they're the ones that are penetrating into the skin. You really have to focus on the needles and not just on the depth. I think depth is highly overrated because from the article, Electrical Cell Stimulation by Needles from Hort's Libel and Luther Cloth, they say that electrical cell motility has been found at a 0.5 to a 0.6 millimeter depth, okay? So anything deeper doesn't really make a huge difference. So people always think the needle length is so important, which I actually think what is more important is the material the needle is made out of, the shape of the needle, and the metal that the needle is made out of. So this Cure microinfusion system has gold-plated needles, which I love. You know, Banish's also has gold-plated needles, and they're very, very fine. It has, I believe, 20 microneedles on there, so smaller than Banish's 77 gold-plated needles, okay? But I do like the quality of the needles. Another thing is I do like how there's like this thing in the middle, so that way you don't push too deep. I think the stamper devices are always going to be the best microneedling devices out there. Stamper is always going to be better than rollers and is always going to be better than motorized devices, okay? The cons though, okay, about the microinfusion device. First is that the size is really small. So for me to microneedle my entire face, it took me over 45 minutes and most of the serum was still intact. So what this mechanism does is that you take one of their vials that comes in these packages, you take the vial and then you pour the vial of serum into the microinfusion device, and then you're going to stamp it all over your skin. It just took about almost an hour, even 45 minutes to an hour to stamp my entire face because it took so long because it's so small. And also, I didn't know what to do with all the leftover serum. I only used like 20% of the serum. So 80% of the serum was still in the vial. And so I had to dump it all out and pour it all over my skin. The other thing I don't like about microinfusion devices is that I don't like the fact that the serum is infused. I am anti-infused serum. Why? Because it goes against our principle, which is bells and whistles, right? I find that applying the serum on top afterwards is just as effective as infusing a device. So why increase the risk of bacteria when you're microneedling and let's say you happen to go over an active acne? There's no backflow prevention mechanism where the bacteria is like prevented from going into the serum. So if you do, and you're like me, you're very acne prone, you go over a place where there might be an infection, that bacteria goes back into the whole serum vial and then you could spread it all over. So that is one of those things I really do not like about the microinfusion devices. If I were to use this on its own, I would actually do it without the serum. I personally would stamp and microneedle in an area, and then I would apply the serum. I would take it out of the vial, apply the serum on afterwards to prevent cross-contamination, bacteria running the skin, all of that. Okay, so that's a huge reason why I'm not a huge fan of microinfusion devices. The third thing is that there is no replacement heads for these, okay? You do have to buy a new kit every single time, and it comes with these new heads every single time. That's also another expense. And then you have to use another whole thing of vial every single time. There's no way to Like, let's say you have leftover serum, there's really no way you can like store it. There's no like serum dropper bottle, whatever. So I wish these brands would actually have a separate bottle of serum so that way you only use what you need and you're not wasting an entire vial of serum every single time. There's also no cleaning mechanism if you want to reuse the heads. Basically, you have to dump this entire thing and then reuse it and then rebuy another refill again. So again, it was about $60 to $70 each vial because the initial price was like $140 and then came with two. Also, there is no different interchangeable head sizes. So I do believe they only come with a 0.5 millimeter needle size. So overall, I would say I love the microinfusion for the needles and for being able to target around specific areas. So if you do want to target, for example, under the eyes, I think it is a really good shape ergonomically for that, and also maybe around the nose and around the nasolabial folds. But in general, I don't like the fact that microinfusion can create and transfer more bacteria to the skin because there is no backflow prevention mechanism. And also, it's just a complete waste of the serum every single time you use it. So from that case, not a huge fan. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Dermarollers, which is what I think most people are familiar with. So the pros of these Dermarollers is that the price is very affordable. So I have a couple of Dermarollers here. This one is one you can get off like Amazon or whatnot. And this one is Jen Amber's Dermaroller. So Jen Amber's, I believe, is about $40-ish. And these are about 20 to 30. Okay. I will say there are a lot of needles in these devices, 540 needles in these Dermarollers. So there's a lot more needles in here. So the Dermarollers would be really, really great for the body, for stretch marks, for let's say you have a C-section scar or you just want to like break up the skin on the body. I think the Dermarollers are better for that because the skin on the body is thicker than the skin on your face. And you don't need to worry about tram track scarring or scraping or whatnot as much as you do on the face. Some of them are able to replace the head, so that is a positive, versus the microinfusion devices, you're not able to replace the heads. The con of the Dermaroller is, number one, the tram track scarring, right? So if you're going to do it, I would do it on the body. Another reason with the Dermarollers is that you can't really target different areas, right? You know, it's really hard if you have active acne to like kind of target different areas. The contour is like not as there as it is with maybe the Banisher device or the microinfusion devices. I will say Jen Amber's Dermaroller is like more ergonomic than just the regular ones you can get on Amazon, but at the same time, it's still much harder to contour. Most of these Dermarollers that I have seen, they are stainless steel, all right? Stainless steel needles. And you guys know that for me, for these microneedling devices, the most important thing you should really look at is what type of needles is the device made of, because that is what is going to penetrate into your skin. It is always about the type of needle and the thickness of the needle, not necessarily about the length of the needle, okay? So the Dermaroller, you can see just how thick the needles are, which I do not like. I do not like stainless steel needles because they are very, very thick, all right? So that's a no. The overall rating I would give a Dermaroller is a C. It is really good if you're going to use it for the body. It's very affordable. But in terms of ergonomics, targeting, and creating tram track scarring, I wouldn't use it on my face. All right, before we get on to the motorized devices, I'm going to talk about Banish. I have had over 13 years of designing, creating, manufacturing microneedling device. And you guys know I'm also the founder of Banish. So I'm going to be sharing why Banish is the best at-home microneedling device. Overall ranking, I would say the Banisher is the best because of its safety functions, because of its effectiveness, and because of its price point. So what leads me as someone who is credentialed to review microneedling devices? Well, I've suffered with my skin since I was 9 years old. And I went on so many different medications, so many different products to try to treat my skin. It wasn't until I actually went to Duke University to study pre-med and dermatology, where I learned to read a lot of research articles. And from there, I realized a lot of the skincare products and then skincare ingredients had a lot of filler ingredients, had a lot of additives, ingredients that made the product smell good and feel good, but didn't actually do anything to the skin. So I made actually my own products in my kitchen, and my acne actually started to clear up for the first time ever. However, I was left with a ton of scarring. And that is when I realized that my skin is so prone to scarring. Every single pimple I've ever had in my entire life, every single cut, bruise, whatever, has left a permanent scar. So I wanted to get my face lasered, and I went to a trusted family friend, plastic surgeon. And he actually said that because I have a darker Fitzpatrick skin tone and I'm very prone to scarring, I would actually develop more hyperpigmentation after the laser treatment. So he recommended doing microneedling with an L-ascorbic acid vitamin C serum on top. I didn't think anything of this, but I had heard about microneedling because people on my YouTube channel asked me if I had tried it because they noticed my scars. So I tried microneedling at home. I made my own vitamin C serum. And before I knew it, everyone on my YouTube channel started asking me what I was using, where I was using it from, what did I buy, what I was doing to my skin, because they noticed the immediate results on my skin. And so that is why I decided to start Banish back in 2013. So we've been in this business for over 13 years. And Banish was one of the first at-home microneedling kits out there, microneedling devices out there. And my goal for Banish has always been to democratize at-home microneedling. And my goal has always been to develop the best at-home microneedling products. So at Banish, we have the 5 principles of the Banish methodology, which is what I base all of our products around. The first is that the products are evidence-based. So everything that we launch is based on science, is based on published studies. For example, when I launched the Banish kit, I knew that microneedling was so good for the skin because of the numerous studies about microneedling and acne scars. So even though there wasn't really any microneedling brands out there, I decided to go for it because I knew that the science was there. Number 2, we don't believe in traumatizing the skin just because. I know in this day and age, there's a lot of shock factor and people think, oh, the more traumatic your skin looks and is, the better it is. So I do not believe in further traumatizing the skin, especially if you're like me and you are very, very prone to acne scarring. Number 3 is we take a long-term approach to skincare. So we don't follow trends or gimmicks. I'm not somebody who believes your skin should be a trend. I don't think skincare should be a trend. It's not a fashion statement. For Banish, we only develop products that are actually going to create a beneficial result for your skin based on the science and the publications, not based on the newest fad in skincare. And we also don't add bells or whistles if it doesn't have a clear benefit to the skin. So I know in skincare, there's really cool visual effects, there's really cool packaging, all of that. Again, first and foremost is the absolute most important thing is the ingredients and how they act and how the combination of microneedling and the serums and the aftercare reacts together. And number 5, the best skincare is for you to feel confident in your skin. You guys know I have suffered with acne, with my skin issues my entire life. So I know that confidence is always, always first and foremost in making you feel good about your skin. Okay, so now those are the 5 Banish methodology, the principles that we create all the products by. Okay, so Banish is a microneedling stamper. Okay, it is a patented product, so no one else can sell this product. And let's talk about the needles. So the needles on the Banisher include 77 gold-plated needles. So they have the same type of needles that the Cure Microinfusion system does, or the other gold-plated needles have, which is really good. And if you look at this image, this was from Stanford dermatologist Dr. Sarah Shu, who practices in Washington State. She zoomed in on the Banisher needles 200 times, and you can see how sharp and how pointy they are. And I think it's really important to point that out, like figuratively, literally, no pun intended wise, because you want a needle that goes straight into the skin. If you're using like a stainless steel needle, it's more of a cylindrical shape. So the cylindrical shape needles go into the skin and it causes more scarring. If you're going to take anything away from this video, to be careful of the microneedling needle type you're using, because if you're like me and you get a scar towards everything, I'm left with permanent scarring right here on my nasolabial folds because the technician went way too ham using a motorized device with stainless steel, and it permanently scarred my skin because the needle was too thick. So the important thing with microneedling is using the highest quality needle, one that points into the skin, one that is the thinnest around, so it creates enough trauma without further scarring the skin. So the price of the Banisher 3.0 is $130, which is a little bit more on the pricier side. It comes with two replacement heads, two of the 0.5 replacement heads, and also a Banish vitamin C serum. And the Banish vitamin C serum retails for $49 by itself. So with that, it's actually a pretty good deal. Okay, let's talk next about the ease of use. I would give this a 5 on the ease of use, meaning the highest of the ease of use. All you do with this is you're going to fill the Banisher cap to the fill line, and then you're going to push it in, and that is how you're going to clean your Banisher. So very, very, very easy to use. And then to use it, you would just stamp it around your skin, which is so great. What I also love about the Banisher is that it has a conical shape to it. So you can see the way it is structured. It's like aerodynamics, not really, but all of the weight goes to the Banisher, and then it has a conical shape. So all the pressure goes into the needles evenly. So when you press into the skin, it kind of bounces and almost contours around all parts of your skin. So it's really, really easy to target any specific areas, whether it is the nasolabial folds, whether it is around the forehead, whether it is around the temples or under the eyes. It's very easy to target. The Banisher comes in 3 different needle lengths. You can buy the 0.25 needle length heads, the 0.5 needle length heads, and the 1.0 needle length heads. So once you get the kit that comes with 2.5 heads, it's so easy to replace the needle heads, and I'll just show you how to do that. So these are the 0.25 needle heads. You just kind of snap it on, and this, you can see, is much smaller, those heads. I also love how the needles are so fine. They are actually finer than a strand of human hair. So that's how you know how thin the needles are. Again, all we want to do is induce collagen production without further scarring the skin. So I would give the Banisher an A. The only con of the Banisher for me is that it does take longer to microneedle the entire face than, let's say, a Dermaroller. And also, you know, it's kind of plain and simple, and some people might not like that. So if you're looking for something more gadgety, the Banisher is not it. But as you guys know, that one of the principles of Banish is not to add anything unless it's like scientifically proven it's needed. Now let's talk about motorized devices. Now I want to preface by saying motorized devices has been popular because a lot of estheticians use them. There is no scientific published study or clinical evidence that a motorized device performs better in terms of collagen induction than a stamper mechanism device. All right. So all the studies has been about the needle penetrating the skin to create percutaneous collagen induction therapy. So the fact that a device vibrates or wiggles or jiggles doesn't mean it's actually better. And a lot of times people think it's better because that is what the professionals use. But, you know, there is something in this industry where if you can do it at home, why would you have a professional do that, right? So I want to also preface that. There is no scientific published study that says motorized devices are more effective than just a plain manual stamping device. Okay, so let's get that out of the way first. Number 2, for these motorized devices, a numbing cream is usually required. And numbing cream is something I do not recommend when microneedling. Why? Because it adds another layer of a risk of more trauma into the skin. The issue with numbing cream, number 1, so there's a lot of bad numbing creams out there, and the FDA has issued so many warning letters about the risks of numbing cream. Another reason with numbing cream is there is no feedback mechanism to your skin. So you're putting numbing cream on. The lidocaine is numbing your face, your skin. You're not going to get red. You're not going to get as much blood. You're not going to see the trauma on your skin until much later afterwards. So when you're doing something that requires a lot of numbing cream, you really don't know when enough is enough and you don't know when to stop. And again, my methodology is always to have the safest product possible. So it's not very safe if you cannot feel the feedback mechanism from your skin. And a lot of times what happens is people actually develop very, very negative adverse reactions after the numbing cream wears off because their skin actually can't not tolerate all the trauma that happened when using numbing cream. So that's also another thing. And a lot of people develop allergic reactions to numbing cream. Okay. So because of the use of numbing cream and because there is no scientific study that proves that motorized devices are better than manual stampers, I am not a huge fan of numbing cream, to say the least, okay? But if you are going to use numbing cream, make sure it is FDA approved. Make sure that you remove all of the numbing cream before microneedling, and then you wipe your face with alcohol after putting the numbing cream on. And as always, less is more when it comes to using any topical on your skin. So let's talk about the Dr. Pen. So the Dr. Pen is about $130. So all of these devices are kind of fall in the same price point. But the Dr. Pen is a motorized device, and this is what it looks like. And it comes with one of these plugs. You just plug in a USB-A. And what it does is it vibrates. So let me see if I can do that. You put a cartridge. You put a cartridge in and the Dr. Pen will vibrate. And then you're going to use some slip on the face and then you're going to like swirl the Dr. Pen around your skin. So first and foremost, let's talk about the needles, okay? Again, most important thing of these microneedling devices is the needles. So the Dr. Pen comes with stainless steel needles and you're going to have to use a new one of these cartridges every single time microneedle your skin. So what you're going to do here is you're going to take the cartridge, you're going to put it on the Dr. Pen, and this is a device that vibrates. Okay, so the needles are stainless steel. Remember, stainless steel needles, if you zoom in, they are much, much thicker than the gold-plated titanium needles. And again, if you are someone who is very prone to scarring, be careful of using stainless steel needles because they're much thicker. The Dr. Pen device, I would say, is it is an adjustable needle. So when you twist this part, it actually brings the needle up or down so you can adjust the depth of it. That is a pro. So you don't need to buy different size cartridges for different size needles. But in terms of the risk of skin tearing and user error risk, I do not recommend the Dr. Pen motorized device. Why? Because there's just too much risk behind it if you're somebody who has acne scars, if you're someone who has active acne, if you're someone who is prone to skin tearing or skin scarring. There's been so many comments from people on Reddit where whether they did microneedling professionally with a Dr. Pen or they used a Dr. Pen at home by themselves, they have completely tore their skin and have developed really adverse allergic reactions, whether it is to the numbing cream that they use or to the Dr. Pen or a combination of both. So for that, I actually do not recommend using the Dr. Pen at all because of the further complications you can develop from using a motorized device. Also, before using the Dr. Pen device, you're going to have to put on a slip, which is another skincare product that you're going to have to purchase. So usually people will use a hyaluronic acid right on top of their skin, and then they'll use this Dr. Pen and they'll kind of swirl it around their face. The issue with that is that if you're not using enough slip or you're not using the right slip, you can really further and scar and damage your skin. Okay, so it's another layer of complexity, another layer of where things can go wrong, which is not something that I think is necessary to treat your acne scars or to microneedle. So in terms of that, I would give the Dr. Pen a D. I think it's really dangerous. I think a lot of people do not use it right at home. I think there's no scientific study or research that says that motorized devices are better or produce any better results than a stamping manual device. It's honestly a look and show kind of thing. And you guys know how I feel about a look and show especially with your skin, it is not something that is needed. That is the overview of the microneedling devices out there. Overall, how I would rank them. Banish first, Microinfusion second. Third, the Dermator, and then the Dr. Pen and the Dermaroller are tied simply because of the risk of skin tearing. Again, my biggest criteria is how safe is it to use and what is the risk of skin tearing. So because of that, I always go for a gold-plated, the thinnest needles out there possible. And I always want to use something that reduces the risk of spreading bacteria around the skin. So something where, you're not mixing the serum with the skin, microneedling at the same time, rather microneedling a certain area and then applying the serum on top afterwards. So the overall ranking in terms of comparing all of these microneedling devices would be, the overall winner is the Banisher 3.0 system because the gold-plated needles, of the ability to change the replacement heads, the easy way it is to clean the device, the ergonomics of being able to contour it all around the skin, and the ability to buy different size replacement heads. And if you're going to microneedle on the body, a Dermaroller might just suffice because tram track scarring is not as important when it's on a thicker. And for the body or for the scalp, a Dermaroller could suffice because the skin on the body is thicker, so you don't have to be as worried with tram track scarring. But you could also use the Banisher 3.0, 1.0 replacement heads for the body as well. So thank you all so much for watching this. Let me know if you guys have any other micro needling devices you want me to compare. Otherwise, let me know if you guys have tried these devices, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.